get it, yeah.
It's kind of soft. Oh, sure, sure. Hardly a full form.
Okay, guys, well, since this is not church, everybody needs to get up and move down 3 rows. Come on.
And that's exactly what our professors said back in the day. Consistency. I will say the one thing that remains the same from when I went to college.
Yeah. Up front.
All the
Or back row,
said that.
back row, second front. Come on down, guys. Move into the middle, spread out.
It gets cozy, plus it's better for our voices.
Yeah, we don't want to send poor Mike away. Of course.
Don't want to strain our vocal cords.
Now, Mike, did you know also that this is registered for students with registration? So maybe if you put your phone on the computer, to register or something. Okay.
All right. So this is the last of our 3 E-Labs this semester. And we have Mike Sinsheimer here, who is a serial entrepreneur and somebody who has a lot of heart for this space. And he's going to talk to us about the importance of keeping a flexible mind and being curious when you're starting out. And remember, we had the last 2 speakers talk about how difficult it was, in fact, to maintain that or to reinstate it if you lose it. So we're now kind of going back to look at the beginning and saying, okay, so how do you form it? And then remember that you have to hold on to it, because that's what's going to make your entrepreneurial venture really sing and be able to go far and fast. So on that note, I would like to introduce Mike Sinsheimer, who's going to talk to us tonight about entrepreneurship and keeping a curious and open mind.
Thanks, Professor Black, and thanks for everyone who made it possible for me to come to Wake Forest tonight. I'm really looking forward to an active exchange with you guys. Yes, I'm up here doing a presentation, but I prefer to be interactive. I think I came up specifically with this title. I've never given this talk. It's called Inquisitiveness and Entrepreneurship. So the first thing I asked Professor Black when we met face to face here was who gave the two preceding lectures and what were they about? And she just briefly touched upon it. And she said one was a software company that was trying to, figure out how to keep their business together after being successfully in launch. And then Chick-fil-A came in and talked about trying to reinfuse innovation into their company. And both those companies are night and day past where we're going to talk tonight, and really past where I'll call my sweet spot. So I have two businesses, but really a lot more than that. I have something that is called MedTech Catalyst, in which I found and co-found companies with physician inventors, build the business case, raise capital, bring in all the product development people, and translate technology that we hope will have a societal benefit into its commercial endpoint. And I have, it's basically a hybrid between what a venture capital firm and incubator would do. And I have about 10 portfolio companies under MedTech Catalyst. Most of the examples I'm going to use tonight do not come from MedTech Catalyst, but I'm glad to answer any questions regarding it. I recently launched an e-commerce, social commerce business called Flash Purchase. And it goes through a lot of the steps that we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight's lecture is really in the form of questions. I will sort of infuse the questions with some of the examples from Flash Purchase, and you guys can jump in at any point. So here's the agenda. Really, we're going to focus on innovation, market assessment questions, market strategy, implementation, and what I'll call the entrepreneur's dilemma. And then some businesses need to evolve, and they have to ask themselves continually sort of pivot-like questions, and related to that, they always need to ask themselves other questions as they evolve. And then instead of me asking questions, it'll be your turn. One thing I noticed while I was running yesterday, the other thing I want to talk about, so inquisitiveness ties to curiosity. Curiosity ties to observation. It's really key that when you're out there, you get bombard yourself with different stimuli, because that'll generate curiosity. And I'm sure you're already doing that. But yesterday I'm running, and at my age, maybe it's a jog, and maybe some people might even call it a slow walk. I was jogging, I thought. And I ran and I looked, and maybe the coincident timing, the guy's wearing a shirt that said the Triads ACC School, right? So obviously it was a Wake Forest shirt. And as we sort of talk about some of the questions I ask, some are actually relevant to something that I'm sort of mystified about in some degree, which is the reorganization of all these leagues, including the ACC. Syracuse coming in, all that. Who's the customer? Why are all these things changing now? And we may have different perspectives on that, but I just thought it was interesting. I saw the shirt and started leaping through these sort of intellectual exercise. So maybe while we're shooting through these slides, you can think, okay, how does the ACC's reorganization, or Big Ten, or Big 12, or even though these leagues are still called the Big Ten. Big Ten has, I think, 14 teams. I can't figure it out. And anyway, so let's shoot towards what I'll call the inception of what could be a business or a business opportunity. You never know, but you have to have some generation of some idea to at least start the process and start down the pathway toward innovation, and maybe real later conversion to a business opportunity, and if you're really good, maybe to the level of Chick-fil-A, okay? So I always ask the question why. I think it's the best question. I used to be so mystified about when my kids continually badgered with why, but it happens to be a great question, and happens to be a great way to generate business ideas. So in our case, flash purchase, I started down the path is why is Groupon designed the way it is? Why do I continually get emails that don't really seem to reflect what my interest would be? So I started asking my friends, are you getting these things from Groupon? And are you interested? Are you deleting them? Are you participating in them? And there was a lot of wastage, some participation, but a lot of wastage. And then I started thinking about it from the merchant's perspective. You know, are they happy with the amount, the percent off that they have to give to attract a customer, and then the transaction fee that has to happen, which is 50%, leaving them 25%. You know, from your business classes, it seemed to me to be a difficult, sustainable business from a profitability point of view. So that sort of ties to the next question. Why isn't whatever business you're evaluating, in our case, the daily deal space, why isn't it done a different way? And what we came up with is a user-driven deal platform where customers or consumers create their own deals or join deals that they're truly interested in. They select the categories of interest, and that's the only content they see. If they want to edit a profile and change the categories, they can. And sellers can create deals to their economic criteria at flash purchase. And at a transaction fee substantially less, and they create the deal percent off to customers that they want. The other thing that I was asking was, why is Groupon and Living Social, et cetera, hyper-local, and why are they only service establishment focused? Meaning that their deals were, and I looked at this 2 years ago, okay? Their deals were for restaurants, salons, massage, and they weren't broad. Not that that's wrong, but is there an opportunity when you start asking these questions? Is there a different way, not necessarily a better way to do it? Can you carve the market in a different way? Or can you be a better competitor? Can you derive more value to your end users? In our case, the consumers who participate and the vendors, suppliers, merchants who come online. So that's what we're in the midst of figuring out. So that's the third question. If we actually change it, what's the impact? And what we're trying to do, and we don't know, the jury's out, is create win-win commerce, where the consumer gets a great deal on something that they want, they get a better deal because of group participation, group purchase, than they would on their own. The merchants get a group of large customers in a single transaction at a lower transaction fee, and we get a transaction fee. Can we all win? You know, and the jury is out. And the other questions tied to that. What happens when you deliver the service differently? Obviously, if you look at Best Buy and Amazon, the whole world's changed. Best Buy is in big, big, big trouble because they're layered with brick and mortars and sales tax and overhead that the online merchant isn't. That way of delivering product and good merchandise across multiple categories has disrupted the traditional way of doing business. So, and this is sort of, you know, could be a retrospective question, or when you're starting out, knowing what you know now, how would you design and deliver such and such a product and service? So perhaps a Groupon, now that they know what I saw 2 years ago, that they have significant overhead, and post my creation of the concept and submitting patent applications, Groupon files for an IPO. In that IPO, they show a $500 million loss. And beyond that, they show that they have a head count of over 10,000 employees. And could have they done what they have done more efficiently and not get layered like that? Stock opens at 28. I didn't look today, but it's trading at about $4. Andrew Mason, the young CEO, is no longer there. It's in my opinion, and everyone's entitled to theirs, and people could argue with my opinion. It's an inherently flawed business plan with a ton of overhead that continually gets passed on in the form of high transaction fees to merchants. And then what happens to merchants is they're not being profitable and there's attrition. So there's merchant churn and the whole series starts again because you have to attract new merchants, which creates a lot of investment spending. And that overhead stays. And it's a vicious, vicious cycle. So what is the competitive environment? And that's a hugely important question, right? If you had a ton of competitors doing exactly what you were going to do, or if they have patents on it, on your idea, well, that's, you kind of create go, no-go decisions, and you say, that's a no-go, right? But the way you do it is you ask the question, like, for example, flash purchase. You start out broad. The whole commerce space, okay? The companies we talked about, Walmart, Best Buy, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and then the daily deal sites, Groupon, Living Social, and the like. Anyone who's doing commerce is part of the competitive assessment. Yes, if you segment the market, you might drill down on specific competitors, and in my case, I drill down more to these deal companies. And Flash Purchase is not a daily deal company, it's a deal platform. And that means that deals don't necessarily happen every day. There's expiration dates, and it's sort of got a price line element to it in which consumers can name their deal. And it's got an eBay component in which merchants can come in and bid on them in a reverse auction format. What are the economic trends? Well, you guys are part of a generation that has lived through probably the greatest or largest, I don't know, worst recession on record outside of a depression. So what happened? It's probably no coincidence that the daily deal business really started in the midst of this economic decline, right? To give people an opportunity to make purchases that they wouldn't necessarily make. So it's important to understand the trends. And regulatory trends, probably less important, but obviously privacy issues if it's a technology business. What's happening with patent laws, there's been a big change in that. In my other business, it's a huge, huge issue. What's up with the FDA? And currently, the FDA, it's very unpredictable. And it's very, when things are unpredictable, they're much more costly than they normally would be. It takes more time and it takes more resource. So what that impacts is how much money you'll need, or you have to come up with another strategy. And a lot of device companies and pharmaceutical companies are beginning to do their clinical trials outside of the United States to start marketing somewhere else first and then come back to the United States. And that's because of regulatory trend. What is the market potential? Very important question. So when we talk about market potential, it's not the same thing as what your business is going to do. It's really the addressable market for your business. And I'm sure I'm repeating a lot of stuff you've heard. But I want to drill down on market potential just for a second. So market potential, if you are interested in really scaling a business, you have to have a very large market potential. Because I guarantee you and your family and your friends do not have the capital required to scale a big business with a big market potential. So usually you need a market potential probably of almost $1 billion to attract venture capital. And that does not have to be your aim. You could determine that you want to have a business where you have a nice lifestyle, you want to bootstrap it, you want to grow it organically, and then you don't need to have that big a market potential. You could live quite comfortably without that large market potential. In any case, the market potential has to be something where over time you can sustain a business and also return an investment either to yourself, your friends and family, or the investors. And if it doesn't work like that, it's almost another go, no go. If you have a market potential of $1 million and the competitors in the space, well, I think you're going to have trouble probably attracting investors and over time keeping your own sustained interest in it. Because we're not talking about profit when we talk about market potential. We're talking top line, not bottom line. So what are the trends impacting the distribution channels? That's, we talked about it to some degree. It emerges with the next question. Technology. All of a sudden, online distribution, really, right? And sometimes it's so disruptive that the middleman is cut out. There are lots of businesses now, fashion being one, and some others, where there's an online facilitation between the consumer and the actual manufacturing plant to get products designed to fit the consumer need, and the product comes from the plant to the consumer. So what does that do? That takes out a significant layer of cost. But you have to look how your business might be, how or if something can be disrupted, or you can be the disruptor, so that you anticipate things. And this sort of all flows together. What will be our point of differentiation? At Flash Purchase, it's a user-driven deal platform where consumers or sellers can curate their own deals, bring a group together, and then have other people in the same area of interest join that group and create a win-win commerce. Is that point of difference consistent with what a competitive advantage would be and your core competencies? And really most important, does that point of difference, you can be different for difference sake and not move the needle at all because no one cares about that difference. You have to be compelling. It has to be a value proposition. Your point of difference really needs to be value add to quote unquote your constituents, or it's useless. So, what market segments do we want to target? In essence, you can't necessarily be all things to all people. At Flash Purchase, that's how we're starting, because what we're trying to find, and we'll talk about it later, product market fit. We've put the functionality and the graphic user interface in front of everyone so that we can hear feedback. You can do a deal in every category right now. But where we're really going to go, and where we're starting to go, is to create a vertical strategy in which we take our functionality and apply it to specific verticals so we can target that market better and be a leader in that specific niche versus overall big platform stuff. So golf is one that is imminently launchable. And we're also looking at what is called a white label strategy, where we give our functionality to people who already have a captive audience, who know that audience better than we will, and who already has what we'll call market liquidity. And we'll talk about some of the issues we have. So you always have to look at who is your customer. If you don't know your customer, how can you market to them? And if you're all things to all people, you may dilute the message. And I think we're finding that, quite honestly and frankly, at Flash Purchase. And that's why we're pivoting, which we'll also talk about later. Don't just think about who the customer is when you message and you show your point of difference. And again, it's got to be a meaningful point of difference. Think about who can influence the decision maker. Customer on its own might not be the decision maker. If it's some group that wants to do something, go travel, there might be a ringleader, but everyone else has to get in on the decision, whatever it is. And so key questions are, because this talks about sustainability and profit, how much investment spending are you going to be willing to make to build this is really the cycle, right? No one knows about Flash Purchase for the most part. We're doing a lot of social media, but in the big scheme of things, our awareness is 0 to 1% probably. So how much are you willing to invest to change that so people know about you? Then you've got to come up with compelling things so that people try you, meaning that there's transactions, and then you move past that, depending on the order, to purchase interest. And then you're doing such a good job, you're investing great in customer service, and you're retaining people as loyal customers. And the loyal customer to me isn't just one that comes back, it's one who's an advocate for your business. Because that's how you get geometric growth. And we have a lot of sharing capability at Flash Purchase, and we're going to do our best to lean over backwards to ensure satisfaction and going beyond expectation so that we get organic growth from existing users, because money is precious. So the real key is how will you design and communicate all this value proposition to your target audience so it is meaningful and results in favorable action being taken. In our case, we want transactions, and over time, we'll get profitability. But everything that you do can't just be, I'm an entrepreneur, and most people say, hey, they're kind of seat of the pants kind of people. It's kind of like, hey, we're doing good. This looks nice. But it can't be like that. You have to be measured. We have to get report cards. If we don't get report cards, we can't be flexible and change our plans. It means we're too rooted in our idea. You can't fall in love with your idea. I mean, I have to say I do. But you have to do your best to put sort of systems in place to alleviate the human tendency to love everything you come up with. Because if you do, and no one else does, all you have is, maybe a patent issue's in my name. Fantastic. I say, hey, I was a clever guy, but I never got any business off the ground. So you have to set up systems, set up metrics. What metrics matter? And that really depends on the business. It could be traffic at the site. It could be people sharing deals. It could be people creating deals. It can be people transacting deals at Flash Purchase. Probably all those are going to be important, and over time we're going to figure out the best way to weight those and say, hey, directionally we're doing well, or we're falling off here. Are we not marketing as much? Is our stuff stale? Do we need to upgrade it? Has a competitor entered the market? What do we do? And again, the entrepreneur can't do anything on his own, right? Everything on his own. He can be visionary, he can have ideas and guidance, but you have to have staff and experts and contractors, and everyone's got to buy into the mission. But that isn't free. So that impacts your profit, so you have to think all that stuff through. How do you actually deploy? How do you come up with, okay, this person's going to be in charge of Twitter. This is how often we're going to tweet. This is kind of the general topics we're going to tweet for the day. This is our Facebook posting. This is how we're going to respond to anyone who replies to our tweets or replies to our Facebook posts. What are we doing on LinkedIn? What happens with Pinterest? What's our strategy? How are we doing it? And how do we measure that? How do we measure the stuff that is trying to drive business and get us to be thought of as thought leaders in social e-commerce, which is one of our goals? How much capital, right? Again, it impacts return on investment. How much do we need to actually execute and implement the plan? My favorite thing. Well, it's not really my favorite thing. It causes me sometimes some sleepless hours, maybe nights. What is the catch-22 many entrepreneurs encounter? You guys have any idea what that might be? Okay. Well, the real catch-22, and the thing that sort of drives you crazy, is the fact that really to sort of raise capital to bring your idea really to the next stage, you need to show proof and validate your business concept. But to show and validate your concept, you typically need capital to do that, because you got to make people, as we went through it, right? You got to make them aware. You got to have them have trial, purchase intent, and maybe some customer loyalty. So at times, we're trying to do lots of strategies to create traffic on the site, but we're trying to do it on a bootstrap budget. And to do it on a bootstrap budget, we may have the greatest idea, but to get to what I call liquidity, and liquidity in this sort of business flash purchase, in an exchange means you have to have enough participants on each side of the exchange. I mean, you have to have a lot of consumers wanting the same thing at the same time, and then vendors who are interested in that group of people who are willing to compete for each other. And how do you get that volume when you don't necessarily have the capital? So how, if at all, do you free yourself from this dilemma? And a flash purchase is sort of what I'm talking about earlier. It's looking at different ways to skin the cat, which is, okay, get a much more targeted vertical where it's easier to reach the customer base, both from the end user of the consumer and the buyer and the merchant seller. So demonstrate some success on that platform, and it doesn't have to be huge, and then show that as a use case. So what I'm trying to do on flash purchase, I'll call it the more generic site, is I'm trying to develop use cases. I have a car dealer who thinks it's a neat way to potentially market a new way of selling cars to groups of people. So car dealers have fleet sales, but that's usually to rental car companies or to companies in general. They'll sell a fleet at a reduced price. Well, flash purchase, if we band people together, is sort of a fleet, but just in a different way. So we're going to do a use case there. If we can have success, even on a small scale, and move cars for the dealer, that'll be interesting. We're also selling tickets for a professional sports team to groups of people. Basically, sports tickets are worthless inventory post the date of the event. So as you go to a perishable item like sports tickets, we might be a very good outlet for them to have success. So taking lots of different use cases and just showing maybe a microcosm of success, we can then attract capital, I hope, to then scale flash purchase. And my dream is to have it be an everyday sort of name. It's a great name. It's got great functionality. Now we need to create some success so that we can then scale it and do lots of different marketing strategies to build the brand so that everyone, including flash purchase, gets value out of it. By the way, in partnerships or anything like that, you never have success unless every party wins. And I think that's a problem that the daily deal space has had. I don't think everyone's winning. So, this all ties to pivot questions. Are we reaching the goals we set when we set up the metrics? If we're not, we've got to start digging deeper. Maybe we have to change something. Maybe we were unrealistic with the goals and our business is actually performing as it should. I don't know, but it's certainly you got to ask the question and then figure out the situation. What's going on with competition? I had this idea 2 years ago. And, I've made changes as things have happened, but you have to continually monitor the macro competition and then what you call your more direct competition. What are they doing? Have they introduced something that you might want to adapt that could enhance your business? Are they getting really good at something and you might want to leave it? Is it too crowded where you are? As we're talking, and I told you about the vertical strategy and this white label approach, well, what I'm really doing is I'm trying to find, I'm searching, haven't found it necessarily, whether we have true product market fit. And that means, does what we're doing fit with the customer prospects that we're targeting. And there's only really one way to get a sense of that, and that is to see what the business flow is, but also to go out and talk to people and show them. Do they really understand what we're offering? Maybe we've got great stuff, but we're not doing a very good job of explaining it, of showing it on the site. You know, we're in the trees, you know, we're in the weeds, maybe. That's why it's good to get out of your office, as they used to say in academia, maybe they still do, out of your ivory tower and go out in the field and see what people who are going to use this and hopefully benefit it by it really think. Do we understand the target market? Maybe we've misassessed everything or something. Let's go back to the drawing board and see what the deal is. So all that leads to ask yourselves a lot of questions. Never trust, fall in love with your product. Determine whether, when you take yourself through this process, that whether there are adjustments you can make. And then keep going through it. It's a feedback loop. You know, just keep doing the process. And if you don't, you'll become Best Buy. You'll become Barnes and Noble. You'll become, this is a way prior reference. You'll become Keds or Pro Keds. There's no Puma, and Puma's reinvigorated themselves a bit. There's no reason Nike should have even come out and had performance sports. They're your generation, but there were sneaker companies before them. Why didn't they, as your prior speaker said, find a way to reinfuse innovation, get with a customer and really understand the market? Because usually what happens is you get comfortable. And also by comfort in a larger company, and I worked for a Fortune 50 company for 5 years, Pfizer, you're just comfortable, and then do you really want to go against the grain and risk your career by doing something different? Because, you know, in entrepreneurship, most ideas fail. So if you're in a company and you fail, they're not really promoting and really believing that mistakes are good because you learn and you keep going on and it infuses innovation. That's why they get stale. These companies get too comfortable and they believe their press clippings, or they like their profit coming in the way it is. They're milking their company. But they're at great harm because they're reducing R&D, and the next guy who they don't know about is changing the rules of the game. Whether it's iPhone, whether any of this stuff. The rules get changed, and those that aren't thinking about all these questions that I'm asking aren't just appropriate for entrepreneurs. They're appropriate for generic businesses. I work in medtech with doctors and dentists, and I'm on a consumer business here. The process is the same. The learning of the technical aspects of the business are different. The understanding the market, the customer segments, etc., are different. But if you don't do this process, I assure you, you can't grow. And whether that's growing a new business or growing your existing business, if you're not cycling through this stuff, you're certainly not going to thrive, and you're going to be lucky to survive. There are a lot of displaced, disrupted businesses that allowed stuff to happen to them. They were not proactive. They were in a position to do all this stuff. Okay, examples of pivots. You guys know Instagram. That basically started as a Foursquare type of business. There are 100 million users at Instagram now, 100 million from that pivot. Flickr started as a gaming company. Twitter started as a podcasting company. It's amazing, you know? Twitter's got, I think, a $3 billion market cap. YouTube started as a video dating site, not a video platform company. $3.5 billion in revenue. Sony, for us older folks, started as a home goods company, and now they're the largest electronics company. Fab started as a gay social network, and now is a tremendously successful fashion commerce, e-commerce site. eBay, right? How many people remember eBay as sort of having elements in what I'm talking about flash purchase have? As basically an auction marketplace where sellers would sell to one buyer an item which buyers would compete through an auction bidding on. Flash purchase has a reverse eBay format for sellers, but eBay now has pivoted. They are a commerce company and a payment company. PayPal is incredibly powerful. Their market cap is $73.5 billion. It did $14 billion in sales last year. They have changed. They changed with the times. They asked themselves, did they want to be specifically in the auction business, or did they want to set up real storefronts and get merchants to really drive commerce through all these stores? And at the same time, they strategically bought PayPal, and PayPal has been a godsend to them. It's probably 40% of their business. So any business should ask these questions, in my opinion. What can we do to remain competitive? It's too early for me to ask that of flash purchase, but certainly the software company who presented here and Chick-fil-A need to always ask themselves that question. Why is it too early for us? We have to understand if we have an offering, but we're not competitive as it is now. We are trying to build our platform, build our name. Okay? Can we extend what we offer to other markets? And flash purchase is already asking that, right? We're saying, can we go to vertical markets, or can we go to other companies who have established audiences? Meaning, like, can we go to Pinterest with flash purchase, where users at Pinterest pin their items and share their items socially? Can we provide our group purchase functionality to Pinterest? By the way, if anyone has any good leads into Pinterest, let me know after this, because it's a question I've been asking for a while. So don't necessarily stay immersed in whatever place you're at. Think about where you might be able to extend. Don't overextend. Think of where your synergies might be. Strategically, what can you do? Can we add products or services to our existing target market? In other words, can you add more functionality? Are you guys familiar with the lean startup modality, business planning? It's sort of this product market fit that we're talking about today. And so there's something called the minimal viable product for a startup. And that's basically getting your core features out so that you can share it with others, what I'm talking about, so you can hear feedback. Don't put all the bells and whistles on. First of all, it might dilute what people are, how they're evaluating the business. But once you have the minimal viable product and you truly have gone back and forth with the market and developed something that is of value to both sides of, in our case, both sides of the market, then you can consider adding what you would think was more of the kitchen sink. You can come out with new features, and that's why there's 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, right? So once you have an established business, think about adding value to your customers by adding features that they might value. So if you're adding more features they might value, obviously it becomes more attractive for them